Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Cooper Flagg is finally a Dallas Maverick. Also, Ace Bailey did, in fact, work his way outside of the top 3 picks. And if the Bears are going to be successful, they've got to get some of their swagger back first.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
The Dallas Mavericks miraculously ended up being gifted the number 1 overall pick, with which they promptly drafted Cooper Flagg. Locked On Mavs host Nick Angstead celebrates the news.
Cooper Flagg, a 6'9", 221-pound. Nice. He's added 12 pounds over the offseason, 7-foot wingspan. He's going to be 18 and a half at the time of the draft. So right now, because he reclassified his junior year to go into his senior year, so he went in early. He was 17 at the beginning of his freshman season. He was one of the youngest players in college last year, played for Duke, obviously. And the one-sentence explainer about who Cooper Flagg is: at 6'9", Flagg brings a combination of skill, versatility, and explosive athleticism that fills arenas. He can handle the ball and operate out of the high post, where he's a gifted playmaker, showcasing a knack for finding open cutters and easy scoring. On the defensive end is where Flagg is special. This is the Rafael Barlow special statement that I keep saying because it's amazing. He's the most dominant high school defender I've ever scouted, and epitomizes the term game changer. That's from Rafael Barlow of Locked On NBA Big Board. He's an incredible defensive player, going to be an elite defensive player in his career. One of the best that we've seen coming into college. He's had one of the best seasons in college, right up there with Zion, Anthony Davis. Some of the best college seasons we've ever seen, and he was 17. He was one of the youngest in the draft. He's already played against Team USA because he played that mini camp before his season at Duke, and he impressed everybody. You hear from Kevin Durant, Anthony Davis himself, and many others about how he just impressed every single person.
College players don't get invited to that. No. That was a unique thing.
It's a very special thing because he is that guy. He is that special, Isaac.
He really is. I mean, you look at Sam Vecini's piece in The Athletic back a week or so ago. We did some content with it, but he ranked over the last 10 years the best prospects that he has scouted and who he has as the highest grades. He had Wembanyama 1, but then he had Cooper Flagg 2. And I mean, you're talking about over prospects like Zion, Ja Morant, Luka Doncic, like all these players that, Cade, like you just look at the different prospects. Anthony Edwards that's came into the league over the past 10 years. He had Cooper Flagg number 2 behind Wemby. The hype around Flagg is, I mean, he's been one of those prospects that we've seen clips of ever since these high school days, where he grows up in Maine and he has his twin brother, and his mom and his parents are super involved in just his upbringing with the basketball and stuff. And like you said, with Duke, I mean, he led Duke as one of the youngest players in college. He led Duke in all 5 of the main statistical categories. He was a Wooden Award winner as best player in college basketball.
I thought you said main statistical categories, like the state, because you're like talking about Maine. Like most lobster rolls eaten. Most miles at Acadia Park walked.
The main event is something that he has talked about as a nickname and stuff. But I mean, he was a defensive player of the year, like a semifinalist too, at Duke. I watched a lot of Duke basketball this year. I just don't. It's hard to say how much. It did hurt me because I'm not the biggest Duke fan in the world, but just seeing his impact on the floor defensively, obviously some of the shooting stuff, it just got even better as the year went along. That's one of the things you're hearing about now, just how the shot's even improving on top of that. But the most impressive, my favorite thing about him, his tenacity, man. You're getting a guy that is going to not just be your best player for years to come, not in year 1 or whatever, but not only your centerpiece guy, but he is going to be the guy that is going to outwork everyone too. And that's where he's going to captivate Mavs fans of the diving after balls, the hollering, the high flying blocks, the posters he's going to have on people. Like, he just wants it. Go back to that thing that you could read about, how his mom said, calls it the crazy eyes, that he's got the crazy eyes, that she can see it. And he's like, when he's got those eyes, man, it's like, it's on there. That's the competitive Cooper that she knows and raised. And that's just so much fun. It's so much fun to root for too.
It's going to be so easy to root for him. I've been to so many Mavericks games in my career covering this team, and Mavs fans love a good offensive rebound. They love a good hustle play. They love anytime somebody gets a possession that they didn't necessarily deserve, right? Like they go after it and get it. He's going to go after it and get those. He's going to get those blocks. He's going to get those rebounds. He's going to never stop. He's going to go out there and he's going to continue to work to try to get better, because that's another thing we've learned about him. One of the biggest concerns that every scout that I read or talked to had about Cooper Flagg going into this season was, what's his shot going to look like? And you mentioned it. Yeah. He improved on his 3-point shot. He shot 38% from three. He shot like 44% from three in conference play at the back end of his Duke season. And so he has been this player that has added to his game, has worked, and he can do basically everything. Like we've done all these episodes on Cooper Flagg because there's so many different facets of his game that we can talk about and get into. He's not this guy. It's like, all right, well, he's an elite athlete, but if the skills don't catch up, if the 3-point shot doesn't catch up, then we don't know what he is in the NBA. He's not that. He is a player that can do so many different things. Let's say, I don't know, we've talked a lot about his playmaking and his handle, and if he's run a bunch of pick and rolls at Duke and all that. And what if that doesn't translate? Okay, well, then he can do a bunch of other things too. He can spot up, shoot. He can, post up a little bit. He can score off the dribble a little. He doesn't have to play make. He can obviously be an elite defensive player, rim protector, all that. Like, he's going to do so much more, even if some of the skills don't translate right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think his ISO scoring is the thing that will determine just the ceiling for him. Like, I mean, he's fine. It's not like it's like, oh, he can't score in isolation. That's not the case. But if he can develop into one of those top tier isolation scorers that can get to their spot, get up and shoot over the top. He's got the size, like you said, 6'9".
You can stay up to date all year on the Dallas Mavericks by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Mavericks on YouTube or on your favorite podcast app. Your Locked On Sports Today coming up. Ace Bailey ended up lowering his draft stock after all. Before we get to that, the Pac-12 was never dead. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNFL at monarchmoney.com, 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL for half off your first year. Realignment has gone full multiverse when Texas State is headed west to the Pac-12. Sources say the Bobcats are expecting an invite soon, which would make them the 8th football member in the Pac's post-apocalyptic lineup. The clock's ticking, though. That $5 million exit fee doubles July 1st, meaning someone in San Marcos might want to dust off the Regents group chat. It's not official yet, but if it is, welcome to the new and improved Pac-12 Bobcats. Over on the diamond, the Yankees finally locked in versus the Reds.
A much-needed win for the Yankees as they salvage the final game of the series in Cincinnati. I'm Brian McKeon from Locked On Yankees, and you got a great performance out of Max Fried. The Yankees' true ace was unbelievable, goes deep into the game, saves the bullpen, does everything they could have possibly needed in this game. And that's what a true ace does. We've discussed it all year. Max Fried has been everything the Yankees could have possibly wanted, and he should be starting for the American League in the All-Star game this year. A good home run from Jazz Chisholm Jr. It was a deep fly, and it probably made him feel a little bit better after getting ejected from the game the night prior. We'll be discussing all of it on Locked On Yankees throughout the week.
The Brewers pitching lifted Milwaukee past the Pirates.
Oh, this is going to be the summer of Miz here in the state of Wisconsin. Hey, everybody, Chuck Freeman, instant reaction, Locked On Brewers. Jacob Mizorowski, the rookie phenom. Yeah, I mean, he set the tone for all summer long. Sellout crowd today, and the Miz did not disappoint. 8 strikeouts over 5 innings, left after 74 pitches. The Brewers got him an early lead against Paul Skeens. This was the big marquee matchup, Skeens versus Mizorowski, and the Brewers were able to tag Skeens for a 4-run inning early on. And Miz, the 8 Ks, looked great again on the mound. Thought he might come out for the 6th, but the bullpen took over after that. And the Brewers take 2 of 3 from the Pirates. Just keep winning games up to a season high 9 games over the 500 mark. We'll talk about all this coming up. And the Miz does it again. He's now 3-0. See you later on tonight on the next edition of Locked On Brewers. Please subscribe.
And the Cubs threw down with the Cardinals.
All right. You needed that. I needed that. We needed that. Cubs bounce back and cruise to a win, a blowout win against the St. Louis Cardinals on Wednesday night at Busch Stadium. I'm Sam Olber from the Locked On Cubs podcast, and it got off to a great start early. First pitch of the ball game, Ian Happ hit a home run. Kyle Tucker hit a home run in this game. Reese McGuire continues to be more than serviceable offensively for the Cubs in the absence of Miguel Amaya. But the story in this one is and continues to be Matthew Boyd. 6 more shutout innings for Matthew Boyd. His ERA now in the mid-2s. He has just been everything and so much more that the Cubs could have hoped for with his acquisition, especially with all the injuries to the pitching staff. And even when the pitching staff has started to struggle like it has recently, Boyd continues to be consistent and solid. They just got to keep him healthy because he is a huge piece. Right now, the biggest piece in this starting rotation. The Cubs will try and salvage a series split on Thursday with Shota Imanaga coming back from injury. Let's see if they can get it done.
Philadelphia 76ers ended up going a different direction than expected with the number 3 overall pick. Locked On NBA host Matt Moore and Hayes break down where Ace Bailey, as well as the rest of the lottery picks, ended up going.
Right off bat, everything goes chalk at the top. Cooper Flagg goes number 1. Dylan Harper goes number 2. VJ Edgecombe, who was certainly, in play at number 3 for the 76ers. I don't think there's really a shock there. The biggest shock probably comes at number 5 first. Maybe Con Knuppel, at number 4 might have been a bit of a reach for Charlotte, although I like his shooting there. Solid pick overall. A little bit higher than I probably thought he would have ultimately gone. But Ace Bailey, all the drama surrounding him in the lead up to the draft, declining workouts, declining interviews, intentionally trying to tank his draft stock to try and get to, one of Washington or New Orleans or Brooklyn. And it just totally backfires on him. And he gets drafted by the Jazz, even though he had the Jazz, they weren't on his radar at all. He wasn't expecting that to be the place that selected him. And you could see his react. This is supposed to be like the best night of your life. You're drafted, you make it to the NBA, and he looked absolutely miserable.
Yeah. The complete antithesis of what I just talked about in terms of the optimism. He was clearly disappointed in how it played out. And you wonder whether or not it was a smart move for Utah to even select him. I think it was clearly not a smart move for Bailey and his camp to kind of tank the whole draft process, the workout process, and everything else like that. I just wonder whether or not it'll backfire against Utah as well, because when you take a player who doesn't want to be there, well, generally they're going to find a way to get out. They might not give 100%. They might not be able to thrive there. And maybe they're just betting on culture and the fact that Bailey's talent will just trump everything else. But it seems like a hell of a risk, one that's not necessary. And I don't know why you would take it unless you're convinced that he's going to wind up buying in. But I don't know why he would either. So it's not a knock on the Jazz or anything like that. It's just right now they're clearly going at a different path. And for Bailey, he just didn't want to be there. So why bother taking that risk and taking a chance that he might wind up not thriving there? This is the whole point of the draft. This is why you've tanked, or at least been in a pretty heavy rebuild over the last couple of seasons, to get a player who you believe in will stay committed, will continue to grow and develop. And I don't know that they're going to get that in Ace Bailey.
Certainly. I mean, it's certainly a risk for Utah. We'll see if it plays out for him, or maybe this will just be another in the long line of, okay, player gets drafted to XYZ location that they don't want to be in. He'll be there for 4 years. He'll ink his extension, and then he'll force to trade out or just leave flat out and just be like, you know what? I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not fond of Utah. Get me out of here at all costs. But certainly feels like things backfired for Ace Bailey pretty catastrophically here with the all the pre-draft kind of angling. maybe he thought the player empowerment stuff reached counted for players that weren't in the NBA yet as well, but I don't think it quite works out that way. So I'm going to throw him in the one of the biggest losers column of the draft at this point. Who do you walk away thinking walked away victorious? One of the best winners of this draft, David?
Well, clearly, the Dallas Mavericks, I think they did a pretty good job of drafting some good players there. I think the Atlanta Hawks also got some good deals there, and they made a trade with New Orleans Pelicans. They wound up getting the kind of players that they were looking for, and I think retooling a roster that they believe can contend. I mean, we've talked about it before. The Eastern Conference a little bit more wide open now. Some injuries are going to be affecting several of the teams at the top of the Eastern Conference. Orlando makes a move to get Desmond Bane. Cleveland showing perhaps a little bit more weakness than anticipated for such a historically good regular season team. And now Atlanta saying, you know what, we're willing to give this run with Trae Young another chance. And they wound up swinging some major trades there. So I think the Hawks had a pretty good draft night overall.
Yeah, Atlanta's certainly a team that we are going to be speaking a little bit more about as we navigate through this show, because we got to talk about the other side of that deal with the Pelicans. I don't know what Joe Dumars is doing, what direction he thinks this Pelicans team is going to be able to go this upcoming season. I do think that another team that walks away very, very happy with the outcome of this draft, and we'll talk about. One would talk about the Suns a little bit later on. So one of the deals that they made, adding some defense to their roster. But I think the Spurs, obviously, Cooper at the top for the Mavericks, that makes a lot of sense. They get Dylan Harper, they get the guy they wanted. Carter Bryant at 14 to San Antonio. I just, as he kind of slipped down the board, and maybe slip isn't the right word, because that's kind of about the range where you expected Carter Bryant to ultimately fall, kind of, the late lottery range more so. Saw some mocks that had him maybe up at the 10, 11 range. But for him to get to go to that situation with his skill set to play, alongside all that other young talent in San Antonio walks away with this draft total winners, right? The only issue for San Antonio being potentially, do you have, the developmental runway now to, get Steph Castle and Dylan Harper the minutes while also still featuring, right, De'Aaron Fox, the guy you just made your marquee blockbuster trade for this past season?
I think you worry about that down the road. I think we saw with Oklahoma City, you can't really ever have too much talent. And so acquiring these players, I think in today's league, you're always going to wind up finding players and finding opportunities for them to contribute so long as they're ready and so long as they have the ability to do so. That beats anything else. And so for a player like Brian, I think he's going to find a way to thrive there. And I was hoping he'd slip all the way to number 20 at Miami. I know that was kind of unrealistic, but you're right. I did see him as a kind of a late, maybe 10-ish player, and I thought maybe he would continue dropping a little bit. So the situation seems like an ideal one because, again, with all that young talent, you kind of get a chance to develop and grow together, and kind of iron sharpens iron, as cliche as it might sound. So I think it's a great situation for him, and with little expectation, because that team will not be his to run. He doesn't have to take over and command that group the way some of the players at the top of the draft will. So I think it's an easier situation for him to just find his footing and thrive there. And so I think it's a great deal for San Antonio.
You threw, when we talked about the winners a moment ago, just kind of piggybacking off that point about expectations, how much pressure, if any, in your mind is on Cooper Flagg, given the whole, situation with Nico Harrison and the Luka trade, and, Mavericks luck into this number 1 overall pick. There's all the, tampering or the NBA's rigged allegations, all that stuff, the conspiracy stuff. So, I mean, how much pressure do you feel like Cooper Flagg is potentially under, literally as a rookie this next season, to perform at a level that would be commensurate with Mavs fans feeling not okay, because they're never going to feel okay about, the outcome of the Luka trade, but just what's your read on that situation for him in Dallas?
I don't think there's any pressure, not from my point of view. And I'm sure maybe Locked On Mavericks might have a different view, but I just think that because Luka was such a singular force for Dallas, that it's futile to try and compare anybody who follows in his footsteps and try to say, well, he has to live up to those gaudy expectations. You still have this roster. You still have Jason Kidd as your coach. You have Anthony Davis. You've got Kyrie Irving there. Cooper, as the third best player on that team, can just go and find a way to thrive and kind of coexist and learn the NBA game. And so I think the expectations will actually be lower. I don't think there'll be any pressure on him, even as the number 1 pick, because that team expects great things out of their 2 stars, already established NBA stars on that roster. Flagg, as long as he just has some good moments as a rookie, to punctuate what it will be a learning process for him. I think Mavericks fans will be happy with that because it's a different situation. It's like when Wembanyama was drafted, that was a team clearly in a rebuild, and there was nobody else to kind of deflect or absorb some of the focus from the fan base or anything like that. It was, is this guy really going to pan out? Is he going to be the superstar, the generational talent everybody said he was? And certainly he lived up to those expectations. With Flagg, I don't think the expectations are quite as high on him. And again, comparing him to Luka doesn't seem like a worthwhile effort. So I don't think there's going to be that much pressure at all.
Stay up to date all year on the NBA by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On NBA on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, the Bears can be good this season with the right amount of aura. The Bears are in desperate need of a vibe change in Chicago. Locked On NFL host Tyler Rowland and Luke Braun break down why the Bears can be good this season if they erase their bad vibes.
Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Listen,
winning cures everything. Winning cures everything.
Winning does cure everything, and I agree with that as a general statement. But, Luke, I guess sometimes the phrase winning cures everything, it's like that's a destination thing to say. When to even
simply win a bunch of games, problem goes away. Easy. Yeah.
Right. But to do that, it's like you can't, how do I put this? You have to correct that behavior that creates the bad body language before you start winning. That's a culture. That's a mindset. That's a togetherness. That's a respect for your teammates thing. So they got to get rid of that now, not just hope that, hey, we'll win games and it'll go away. Like the work that they put in right now to develop the culture under Ben Johnson has to eliminate that before the games can be won, not after.
I have a scalding take about this. Which is, I actually, for reasons nobody talks about with Ben Johnson, I think he might be kind of perfect for this. I think the kind of player that is really, kind of susceptible to showing their frustration is, I guess, the politically correct way to put this. The kind of player that's going to whine when they're down. That's DJ Moore, the kind of guy that's going to pout.
Williams.
Ben Johnson is a notorious hothead. We talk about him as the scheme whiz. He's a temper kind of guy. I kind of think that's perfect for those players. I think sometimes those players need to get lit up a little bit, and it comes from a place of love. It comes from a place of I'm trying to get you better, and it's hard coaching. Sometimes those players need that, but everybody's different. And I don't know DJ Moore personally, and I don't know Ben Johnson personally, but they know each other personally, so hopefully they know what to do. But that you mentioned Caleb Williams. I mean, my biggest question for Chicago is my biggest question for New England and my biggest question for Denver. And everybody with a second-year quarterback is, can they build on what they did last year? With the exception of maybe Jaden Daniels and I guess J.J. McCarthy for different reasons. But for those guys and Penix, like those four guys that had these kind of, these rookie years where they showed enough for you to feel okay, but you want to see that and an expansion of what they can do. Well, are we going to get that? Is Ben Johnson going to unlock that? And in a greater version of that question, what kind of offense is the one that Ben Johnson builds for Caleb Williams? It's not going to be the same thing that it was in Detroit, although I do think that their commitment to the offensive line is no coincidence, that they do want to maybe be a little bit more serious about the run. But it's, if Ben Johnson, if we see him as the scheme wizard that has all the right answers to the questions, then what is his right answer to the question of what's the best scheme for Caleb Williams? It certainly wasn't the stuff Shane Waldron was doing.
If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we are here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up, who are the biggest winners of the NBA draft? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.